and welcome to 7.2 Part B. So this is the last notes for 7.2. Again, if you have your circuit binder, that might be helpful to be able to write this down. If you do not, you're just going to want to try and write down the important parts or try and do the graphs, or at least write down this process, like write down the problem and write down the process. That way when you take your quiz, you have that available to you, okay? So 7.2b, we're going to go from point slope form to a graph. Remember that IXL, for some reason, I think it's goofy, they call this point gradient form. So that's the same thing, point gradient. I'd have never heard of that, but I think that's what they say in, I think they say it in South Africa. A lot of people use IXL in South Africa. Maybe. I don't know. But remember, point slope form is the y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. And the things we replace that y1 with a number, the m gets a number, and the x1 will get a number. Okay, so today we're going to be able to identify the point and the slope given an equation in point slope form. And we're going to graph an equation given an equation in point slope form. So we're really going to be given a equation, and then we want to make sure we can make a graph. Now, first thing, just to remember, if 3 points are on the same line, we know that because they either have the same slopes or they have different slopes. So let's label these A, B, and C. Okay, so let's find the slope between A and B. Okay, so that's our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so y2, if I'm doing B and A, my y2 is 5 minus my y1. y1 would be negative 3. I like to put negatives in parentheses. And then my x2 is 12 minus my x1, which is 2. So 5 minus negative 3. If I want to use this, I could. I don't know why this is all goofy today. Okay, so what was it? 5 minus negative 3 is 8. And 12 minus 2 is 10. And I know 8 over 10, I can divide top and bottom by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to see, do all the other slopes equal 4/5? So since we did A and B, let's try B and C. Okay, so y2 is going to be negative 19 minus y1. y1 would be 5. Then x2, negative 17, minus x1, which is 12. So negative 19 minus 5 is negative 24. And then negative 17 minus 12 is negative 29. I know a negative divided by a negative is a positive, but I don't want to know if I can simplify that. And I'm not sure about 29, so I'm going to use my Desmos. So negative 24 over negative 29. And that just gives me 24 over 29. Whoops. Sorry. So that's just 24 over 29. So those are not the same slopes. So they are not on the same line. So are they on the same line? The answer is no, because the slopes are different. All right, number 1. So today, really, if you can do the identifying, this is going to feel really similar, the plotting it on the graph. It's going to be a little different than slope intercept form, but not too much. Okay, so we're going to have y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. Okay, so the point is going to be the x1, y1. So x1 and the y1 make my point here. Okay, so I have a 1 and a 3, and we're subtracting both of them. So remember, for subtracting, it just stays positive. So 1, 3. Right? The slope is what's on the outside of the parentheses. So our slope is 1/4. It's the m. So the first thing we're going to do is plot the point, because we have to have a starting point here. And my starting point is the point. So I'm going to plot 1, 3. So from the origin, I go over 1 and up 1, 2, 3. So there's my first point. Okay, now we use the slope from the point. It tells us our directions, our rise and our run. So remember, it's 1/4. So rise means to go up 1, and then run means to go right and left. And because it's positive, we're going to go to the right. So up 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4, and we make a point. And then we use that nice straight edge. I gave most of you that note card. We gave you that note card. Well, I don't know actually, because that was... another way we could do this is we could go in the other direction. So we could go down 1 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4. And we could keep doing that if we want until we're out. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. But the main two we wanted are those two. I just needed to do that to draw my line, because otherwise I couldn't get a straight one. Okay, we have 2 more examples, and then we're done for today. Easy peasy. Number 2, graph the equation. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is write the equation right underneath it. Y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is identify the point and the slope. Okay, so the point is my x1 and my y1. So my x1 is 4, my y1 is 2. But I notice this stays minus, so that's fine. So that just stays 4. But with my y, it went from a minus to a plus. So because it switched from a minus to a plus, that's opposite. We have to do the opposite of 2. And the opposite of a positive 2 is a negative 2. So 4, negative 2. Okay, then the slope is the m. And m is right on the outside of the parentheses. For some reason, that line wasn't really showing before. So our slope is going to be negative 2/3. So first thing we're going to do is plot the point. And by plotting the point, we mean this point right here. Okay, so 4, negative 2 means we're going to start at the origin. We're going to go right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 2, 1, 2. Now, we're going to use our slope from this point. Okay, so that's different than slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form, we were on that y-axis. Here, we're starting from this point. Okay, and our slope is negative 2/3. So there's 2 ways you could do this. You could think about it as going up 2, but then it's negative. So we have to go backwards 1, 2, 3. That way we get that nice negative slope. Okay. Another way you could think about it is going down 2, but then you have to go positive 3, because then it's going downhill. Okay. So you just really need those 2 points. If you want to do it again, up 2 over 3, we could. That way it just helps us make a nicer line. Up 2 over 1, 2, 3. So the blue start is my starting point. That's where I start, and then I do my rise and my run. Okay. All right, last problem. It says problem 1, but it's really problem 3. If you want to cross that out, you can. Problem 3. My bad. All right, so we have y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. Okay, so first we're going to identify our point and our slope, because our point tells us where to start. Our slope tells us how to move. Okay, so for our point, we want our x1 and the y1. And I want to see, do I need to change anything to opposites? To know if it's opposite, I look and see, did that minus change to a plus? Here it didn't, here it did. So since it's not a minus anymore, it's now a plus sign. I need the opposite of 5. So opposite of a positive 5 is a negative 5. Here it stayed the same. It's a minus y1, so minus 2. So it's 2. Okay, slope is generally pretty easy to find. It's what's on the outside of the parentheses. It's that m. So our m here is 3. Okay, so we start by plotting the point. That's our starting point. That's where we start on the graph. Okay, so we're going to start by doing negative 5, left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1, 2. Okay, now we are going to do our slope. Our slope is 3. So if our slope is 3, how can I write that as a fraction? Remember, that's 3 over 1. And this is positive, so it should be going uphill, puff, puff, positive. So up 1, 2, 3, over 1. Okay, and then we can draw a line through those points. Okay, so in the equation, we're going to write down the equation here, is y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. Okay, m is the slope, and the x1 and the y1 is the point. But we have to remember, what are we going to start by doing first? We're going to start by plotting the point. That's the x1, y1. And then we use the slope, the m, to rise and run. Now, the biggest thing that I see students struggling with is just what's the difference between these equations? So I have y minus 1 equals 1/3 x minus 2 times the quantity of x minus 2. Y minus 1 equals 1/3 times the quantity of x plus 2. And y plus 1 equals 1/3 times the quantity of x plus 2. So the only thing that's changing is this is a minus and a minus. This one has a minus and a plus. And this one has 2 pluses. So the only thing that changes is the slopes are the same, but the points are different. Okay, so the point here is, what am I subtracting from the x? I'm subtracting a 2. I'm subtracting a 1 from the y. This one, though, it's now adding, so that means it has to be opposite of 2. So opposite of 2 is negative 2, and then this one stays because it's a minus, so positive 1. And this one, it's a plus 2, so I need to do opposite of 2, negative 2. And this one is a positive 1, or plus 1, so the opposite of positive 1 is negative 1. Yikes, that was hard to say. Okay, so now you are going to work on an IXL. Make sure you log in, read those steps. If you need help logging in, jump on that Google Meet or email your teacher.